Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Just Another Esports podcast. Once again, you're joined by me, your host, Nicholas Shady Bacon. However, today I do not have my usual co host in Kevin Hubris. Today I'm actually joined by the coach for the Maryville Collegiate League of Legends team, Mr. Tanner Zayu. Mr. Tanner, how are you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
I am doing swell myself. So I invited you on to kind of talk about the Collegiate League of Legends scene a
Mhm.
bit, and from a coaching perspective, I've been wanting to kind of dive more into talking to people around the collegiate scene, and you being kind of one of the more prolific coaches in that area, having had time with some of the professional organizations inside of League of Legends. I know you had a small stint with the Golden Guardians Academy team, and now you find yourself on the Maryville team, having led the university to their first collegiate championship back in 2019. So I guess kind of opening this up, just kind of introducing yourself, like what is your current role at Maryville and kind of how did you end up in that role, since I think the story of how people kind of progressed in their career from start to where they're at now, while it might not be the same for kind of everyone wanting to pursue a career in esports, can definitely be helpful in giving them some insight into optional paths that they can kind of take to put themselves out there.
Yeah, for sure. So like you said, the head coach of the Maryville League of Legends team, or I guess teams nowadays, because because we're blessed enough to have 10 full scholarships. So we run two groups of five. One, obviously one team, one family. But for competitive things, we usually split it up into two so that everyone gets practice. Um, Yeah, so you were mentioning before as well, coming to Maryville was just kind of like a culmination of a bunch of other opportunities. Uh, I started wanting to pursue this back in 2015. I was going to school to be a music teacher, and music was kind of my thing, like growing up, and I always wanted a career that was helping other people. So teaching music was something that I was really into, and just teaching in general was something I really liked. So after dropping out of school and doing that, I committed really hard to trying to go pro with the esports stuff. And back in like 2015, 2016, I was doing a lot of like amateur team building and like open qualifier competition and all that sort of stuff. And just through a lot of effort in that field, I got looked at by Tempo Storm. So I got picked up by Tempo Storm as like an analyst. Um, and I worked in house with a lot of the players. So that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. I was fortunate enough to work with LS there, just learn from him and just kind of like do some auxiliary stuff for him. Um, because we competed against Tempo Storm, I got familiar with E United, and Clarky was or still is the general manager of E United, so I competed against him. And then once we lost in playoffs as Tempo Storm, our contracts were cut, and then so I was a free agent, and I was still in LA. So I hit up Clarky, and um, they were playing Gold Coin United in a few weeks, which is funny enough. That's the team that we lost to. So I had a bunch of prep on that team. And so I hit him up and I said, hey, do you want all the info you need to beat Gold Coin United? And he said, yeah, sure. And he said, can you come to the house tomorrow? So he Ubered me to the team house, and I met with like Hermit and all of them at the time. And after a day, they decided that I was the fit. So I was an assistant coach at United for playoffs. We ended up 3-0ing Gold Coin United, which was Loco Doco's team. And then after promotion tournament and all that, Loco actually hit me up because um, I met Loco at when I was at Tempo Storm. We competed against him, and then I met Loco face to face. And then I came back like literally 3 weeks later to compete against him again with E United. And then he's like, "Wait, I've seen you before." So he hit me up because he got picked up by Golden Guardians. He was looking for assistant coaches, and he remembered me from Challengers. So I got hired by Loco to be an assistant coach for the Golden Guardians LCS team. Um, the LCS team uh, couldn't find the academy coach that they wanted, or couldn't get the academy coaches that they wanted. So basically, at the start of the split, they were kind of without an academy coach, and one of us had to just bite the bullet and do it. So I decided to step down from like LCS and then coach the academy team. And even though it was kind of a shit show, uh, I really kind of enjoyed coaching at that level, even though I was like learning a lot and I still didn't know like a whole lot about like leading. Um, I really enjoyed that. And then in between the Golden Guardian stuff and all that, I was also coaching some younger players and amateur, like people like Tactical and stuff, and Bob Jenkins and all them. Uh, but yeah, Golden Guardians happened, and then I went into off season. Almost went, almost got onto a couple teams, like really really close. And then I was coaching an amateur, and a position at Maryville opened up, so Dan called me, and then that's kind of how I ended up at Maryville.
Yeah, hearing about it sounds like kind of this crazy waterfall effect of kind of where the first opportunity just kind of led to this continuous flow of all these other opportunities, eventually kind of landing you here at Maryville. And at one point, I wanted to go back to, and there was you said you kind of really enjoyed coaching the academy. Uh, with that aspect, do you feel like there's kind of a different aspect in coaching academy compared to kind of maybe the at LCS, since academy is supposed to kind of be more of building and improving the players to eventually play in the LCS? Do you feel like there's kind of like a different mindset of improvement instead of just focusing on kind of like the immediate needs of the team to win to actually make it to like the end goal of Worlds?
Well, so I mean, yes and no. Like people like to try and like split LCS and Academy into like two different boxes. One's developmental, one's not. But the fact of the matter is, like if you're not trying to build yourself up to the next level, regardless of whatever level you're playing at, like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So, LCS teams aren't like it's not like LCS is a win now business and like Academy is like, nah, you don't have to win, you just improve. Like coaching and competition is a results oriented business no matter what level you're at, whether it's like Pee Wee football or it's the NFL, right? Like, if you can't teach people effectively and you can't get the job done and all that sort of stuff, like people are gonna see that. So um I think it's more so just based on what like your purpose of practice is and what your goal is and all that sort of stuff. So I think that there's obviously like a little bit less pressure at the academy level. So for someone like me who didn't have any head coaching experience, like going into academy was nice, LCS definitely had a lot more pressure, but it's also the fact too that um, you have an opportunity usually in academy. Now this is kind of where our academy system gets a bit flawed, but usually with an academy system is you're taking people with less experience and then you're taking people with um generally more unturned like stones in their brain basically, where it's like they haven't thought about as many things as like people with more experience have. So you get the opportunity to get to like turn over those stones and like in them and like get them to think more actively about certain things. And the upside that you have is that they're more inclined if they have less experience to kind of like they're more inclined to shape themselves the way that you want them to be shaped. So that's not like that could be viewed as one of two ways. That could be like an ego fueled thing where it's like, oh, I coach that player, he plays the game the way that I think is good because I'm good, I'm the best, blah blah blah. Or you could just see it as like, okay, if five people on this team like are pretty open-ended as to how they want to approach the game because they have less experience, it means that you're going to have an easier time getting it means you're going to have easier time getting people onto the same page, you know. Um, so that's kind of what I enjoyed. Like the people in academy were more willing to like buy in to all playing the same way, um, because to an extent they don't really know better, and also because academy is like a more fresh experience for them. they're a lot more excited to like play with the team and all that sort of stuff. Um, so yeah, I just think like you can apply the same things to LCS as you do academy. Like I think that everybody needs to win now, whether or not you're in academy or LCS or KR or Worlds or whatever. Everyone needs to win now. Everyone needs to get to the next level, but it's more so just about like the starting point that the players are at.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to coach so there's the thing. I wouldn't want to coach academy now like it is now because all it is now is LCS level players in academy. So you're you have less pressure to do the things you want to do, which is nice, but the players are also going to be like having the same or they're going to be having differing ideas because all the players in academy are now like experienced. So you're just going to find like LCS issues where people aren't willing to sacrifice their own personal ideas and all that sort of stuff. Like you're just seeing that more at the academy level now.
Okay. All right. Well, shifting back the conversation back into collegiate, kind of
Hmm.
with Maryville. Uh,
Hmm.
when building a collegiate team, kind of what is your strategy for building a team and acquiring players? And if you can elaborate on kind of like what resources you use that are either provided by the university themselves or that are kind of available publicly.
Gotcha. So, first off, I think that recruitment is the heart and the lifeblood of team building. Recruitment is an active part of a coach's job and has to be approached as such. Um, I've made the mistake before where, I was allowed to recruit certain players and then I wasn't able to get those players. And then I got other players instead. And then I complained to myself basically that those players weren't up to par. Well, it's like that's my own failure because I didn't get the players I initially wanted, right? I didn't convince them. Um, you're a salesman to an extent because you're selling players on the idea of you and your program. So, um, that it's a part of the job that the people gotta understand that they gotta be good at. Collegiate likes to shit on us a lot because they say, or me rather, they say, oh, your job is really easy because you have the best players. Well, it's like, yes, that is partially true. Like, I don't have to teach them as many things. That's just fact because they're good players. But, like, I got the players here in the first place. So, like, I did do my job. It's just not what you think my job is. Um, so recruitment's definitely like a big, big part of it. Um, and then besides like recruitment's like step one, right? So step one, or I guess step two, I guess, is recruitment. But step one is having a plan of the program. Like, what do you want to accomplish? Like, what sort of team do you want to build? Like, what sort of program are you looking for? Like, what direction do you want to take things? And then once you have a plan, then you start recruiting. And when you're recruiting, you look for somebody that can do three things. They can work well with the team, they can work well with the coach, and they can work well with themselves. Or if they can't do all three of those things, at least they can do two out of three of those things, and then you help them develop the third. Maybe somebody is like a really good individual player. They practice really hard on their own. They VOD really hard on their own, and they work well with the coach one on one, but like they don't work well with the players. That's your job is to get them to work well with the players. So you have a plan for the program, then you recruit based off those three traits, and then uh, part of your plan, but this is step three, is establish the culture of like what your team is and what your program wants to do. Culture is king. Culture and recruitment are the two most important parts of a program. So you have a plan, recruitment, culture. Then you need to set the example and be the example. And then once you have that, then that's where you get into the game shit. So you work on your fundamentals, fundamental excellence, set your standard, and then you just get repetition, establish discipline, and eventually, the top goal is to hit subconscious mastery, and then you're a good team from there. Um, so that's basically like the whole timeline of, when you're building a team, like how do you actually go about building it? In terms of like resources and stuff, I think it just like really wildly differs person to person based on like what resources are available and all that sort of stuff.
Okay. And so you mentioned culture is king. So what is kind of the culture within Maryville when you're kind of building out these teams?
I mean, team culture is just doing your job, always put the team first, make every day count, and then just like pay attention to detail. It's really just like those four traits. I think the culture that we try to set here, and sometimes we do a really good job like holding it, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have days where I don't uphold the culture, and sometimes I do. But culture is really just about being your best in and out of the game every day, and bringing your best, and respecting the people around you by bringing your best. Um, and showing them that you're worth, or they're worth your best every day.
Okay. And going back to kind of bringing in players, how kind of on the nose is Maryville and I guess maybe other collegiate programs with looking at I guess high school town? Because right now I feel as though a lot of the kind of collegiate landscape is um, a bunch of people that may have been around the scene for a while, kind of returning to college to get a degree, moving kind of through their life career, or there may be people that have been moving around from kind of college to college within the collegiate scene. And I haven't really heard of kind of too many people coming up from kind of the high school level into collegiate as of yet, but I
Hmm.
do expect that to be something that's going to become a lot more frequent
Hmm.
as kind of the years go on.
Yeah, so I mean, we haven't really done too much with like the high school level. I think part of the reason why is just because like a time thing. Like we just simply haven't been around long enough as a business to have that fully like implemented and to
Yeah.
use it effectively. You know, maybe if you ask me that again in like 5 years, I probably have like 2, 3 starters like that came from high school, like 5 years from now. But right now, like the players that we're using, like, and this goes to LCS too. Like the players that are used are the players that are used because those are the players that are available. And I'm not talking about like those are the best players available guaranteed, but those are the players that are on the surface that people see that have immediate applicability. Like um, maybe maybe there's a top laner out there that's better than Darshan or Zion Spartan, right? But he's incredibly like well known, and he's familiar with everybody, and they have a lot of VOD of him playing. They know his strengths, they know his weaknesses. Like he's a very like well known commodity. So maybe he's not the best available, but based on what people see in front of them, he is the best available. So they'll go scoop him. It's the same thing with collegiate. Like people are just recruiting names because, you know, that's what is most available to them in their eyes. You know, not every person has access to like every player available. So they're just making decisions based on the information that they have. Um, and it also kind of depends on like what your goal is, right? So the goal for us last year, at least, was to win a world championship, and not to win like a collegiate championship, but to win a world championship. So I can't be recruiting a bunch of 16-year-old high school kids if that's my goal, right? Like I need people with like competitive experience. I need people who can do well under pressure. I need people that have competed against people at a higher level than what they're currently competing at. because we're gonna have to go east and play against like Chinese and Korean teams. Um, so that's why I recruited that way, you know. Um, so the reason why you just see that, to wrap up that whole point, is just people recruit for what they want or what their goal is, but also people recruit based on what's available to them at that current point in time. So I'm sure that's why you don't see like a lot of like high school kids and all that getting scooped up.
Yeah, I know at Ohio State when I was kind of managing the League of Legends team there during my time at the university, and then volunteering my time there 2 years after I had graduated. Uh, we were playing in some of like the upsurge competition, which has pro it's like amateur players and then a lot of collegiate players as well.
Hmm.
And like I'm not able to recruit since Ohio State at that point didn't have a program, and I don't think they're recruiting players still currently. I know I had players on the team coming to me like they were like, oh yeah, we tried to convince Five Fire to like come to Ohio State, but he's like they were really sad that apparently he like decided to go try and go pro, and so he didn't decide to come to Ohio State because they're like, man, dude, if we had gotten him on the team and he had decided to come here, we'd have been really, really good. I'm like, okay. So it's it it's very interesting, like hearing about kind of like a lot of the recruiting process. And do you have like your players come to you with like people they've been playing against, maybe in like solo queue or in other competitions that they have done throughout the years, been like, we should try and see if this guy wants to come here?
I mean, yeah, like there are people from, I have that too. Like there are people that I've competed with and against at the Academy LCS level that I've wanted to bring here for a while. Like, um, there are players on our team that have, people they've competed with and against that they think would be good additions too, like all that sort of stuff. Um, but yeah, that usually happens. It's not like, if we're not making changes to our roster, it's not like we're not looking. We're always looking. Um, we're always looking at people. So there's usually a couple names floating around every so often.
Yeah. And so Maryville's kind of, would you say that their kind of overall goal with the team is, you said it was to win a world championship. Um, if you were at a university with, I don't want to say like less resources because that doesn't really attribute to kind of why Maryville's been successful. It's not because you guys have maybe more resources than other teams. It's due to a wide variety of factors. But if you were at a university with, we'll just say, less resources or influence than Maryville, how would you maybe change your approach to coaching and the priorities of the team? Since if maybe you're like a smaller community college that has a student body of like, let's say maybe 1,000 students or whatever, and you're developing a team for that university, they're not all going to be challenger tier or master tier players that are going to be able to win a collegiate competition. So like how kind of does the priorities of that team change and the higher overall goal of it?
Yeah, well, somebody told me um a long time ago, and by a long time ago I mean in like esports time, so that was like 2 3 years ago. But somebody told me a while ago when I first started doing this shit that you should only be as serious as the situation dictates, and it's like a sliding scale, right? So I think that applies to expectations and stuff as well. So Maryville, we push really hard, and we have high expectations because of the position we're in as a program, right? But if I'm going to a smaller program, like let's say I went to, you know, Illinois Wesleyan or like GVU, like last year before they started picking up steam. Um, my goal wouldn't be a national championship in year one. My goal would be a national championship in year two. And then my goal in year one would be to establish the culture, maintain the culture, and then play for like a regional championship, which is like, winning the North, winning the South, East, West, all that stuff. Or at least making like top, making it 2 champs. That would be like a big thing, right? Having a tangible goal based on your starting point, right? It's not like you can be like, I'm a bigger guy. I'm like 275, right? It's not realistic for me to say I'm going to go out and run a marathon, right? Like it's just not realistic. I'm going to get hurt. Like my body is going to be harmed like very badly. Like I'm going to get hurt and there's going to be negative consequences, right? But if for me to say I want to train so that I can do a marathon in the next 18 months, then that's a reasonable goal, based on my starting point, right? So the starting point just kind of dictates like a realistic outcome for you, and then your job as a coach is to take that realistic outcome and you want to try and push for more, and you want to try to get people to believe that they can do more, and you want to get people to be able to accomplish more. So if I think, um, like 2019 Maryville is a perfect example. We had two off-role players, and then we had, like a new player in Niles, like coming in as a freshman. So the team was like pretty raw in terms of their skill as a team. And when I got picked up, their team level was like kind of faltering. Like they didn't really have a good team identity or anything like that. So for us, like I knew that we had the pieces to win a world championship, so I was just focused really hard when I came in on winning a or sorry, not world, national championship. When I came in, I told myself it was like, all right, we can win this national championship. And we did. We came in and we did it, which is cool. But then once we went to Hong Kong and we started, competing against some of the other teams, I was like, oh shit, we could actually push for this whole thing, man. Like we could win a world championship. So that's when you got to start getting the players to believe that they can win a world championship. And that's when you start training like you can actually win the world championship. A tangible goal for us at year one was not to win a world championship. A tangible goal for us was to win a national championship. But then, so you take that goal and then you try to push a little bit further. You know, coach by definition is just somebody that gets people to where they couldn't get themselves, right? So, um, we all thought national championship was doable, and then once we obtained that, it was like, all right, let's push it even further, right? So, go to a new program, set like a tangible goal for yourself based on your starting point, but then don't be afraid to believe in more, right? And push it forward.
Yeah. And so, what do you kind of find most of the players on the team aiming for, and how do you work towards bringing those different end goals together within the team? Like from my experience with the League of Legends team at Ohio State, at the very least, none of the players had any aspirations of going pro. They were all
Hmm.
playing to obviously have fun and compete and really try to win at least at the very least the Big Ten, when that was still a conference within the CLAW conference. Um, but for instance, going to like a Rocket League team, a couple of the players on the Rocket League team have aspirations of going pro, and so they had to
Yeah.
kind of manage those different interests. And say maybe one of the three didn't have an end goal of potentially going pro, but two of the players did. And so, do you have kind of any of those different kind of end goals within the players on your team? And if so, how do you kind of manage those?
Yeah, we got people with like, I think everyone here is like open to whatever happens, but we got people that prioritize things differently than others. For example, we have some people that their main goal, like no matter what, is to get to the pro level. But then we also have people that are like, I'm just gonna do my best, and if I get a pro opportunity, that's cool. If not, it's all good. I get my degree. So I think kind of like a multifaceted thing. First thing is that you just need to find what each person's motivation is, um, and the reason why they're doing something, the reason why they enjoy something, or the reason why they're pursuing that in the first place. Um, and then you need to find a way to make each person's individual motivation work together. So like you need to find the most effective way to sell the team to each individual player. So the team is going to be different for everyone. For example, I grew up doing football and baseball and all sorts of sports. I'm a sports kid, like grew up playing year round, um, which is funny because you wouldn't know that by looking at me. But uh, and then I also did drumline competitively, like drum corps and all that sort of stuff. So for me, like being a part of a team and thinking like hive mind, being in unison all the time, like that's what I value for a team, right? So for me, like I'm perfectly fine setting aside my shit for the betterment of the team because that's what I grew up doing. But for some people, maybe they come from more individual sports like tennis or something like that, or they don't come from sports at all and they're just really used to doing things themselves. Like you need to get them to understand in their own way that applies to their life, like why is prioritizing the team, putting the team first important for them. And I don't think there's one right answer to any of that stuff. I think it's just depending on people's personal life and like uh, their experiences and their outlooks on things. But you just got to find a way to like put that puzzle together and get everyone to like. Everyone might not think of the team the same way, and everyone might not want to get the same thing out of the team. But the team needs to be on the same page and it needs to move forward. So it's really just about trying to make a picture out of puzzle pieces, basically.
Yeah, so to kind of help you out with that, do you ever just kind of sit down with the players and just talk to them about
Oh, for sure. I
maybe
mean,
just
that's something that is happening all the time. Like that's something that you do with recruitment. Like that's stuff that you talk about in recruitment. That's stuff that you talk about in interviews. That's stuff that you talk about in one-on-ones. Like you do weekly one-on-ones for players, all that sort of stuff. That's when if you can see that someone's struggling or someone's like acting a certain way, you try to understand and like think about that and try to get to understand their point of view and all that stuff. But it's a very active ongoing thing. you know uh, for example, my priorities, like my priority for or to my motivation to coach has kind of changed over the years, where when I was doing it back in 2017 and stuff like that, like my main reason for coaching was because I wanted to like win titles. I wanted to win, like I was working towards getting on an LCS team and I wanted to like win an LCS title. So getting onto Golden Guardians like LCS at the beginning of franchise, assistant coaching for Loco, like all those things were like I was on the right path in my eyes. But in recent time, my priorities have changed to where I'm not concerned about winning an LCS title anymore. Like I'm in it for different things. I want to better people in and outside of the game. I want to make people better students, better players, better people. Just it really kind of caters. That's because of stuff that's happened in my own life. Family loss and change of perspective and all that sort of stuff. But it's a thing that you constantly have to monitor. So you check it before you bring them into the program, and then you monitor it throughout, and then you make adjustments when you have to, basically.
yeah, that's really cool to hear because I know for me, going from like start of kind of everything to now my perspective and my mindset on a lot of things within kind of collegiate esports has definitely shifted from like what it used to be to like a now. And I think a lot of that I definitely attribute to when I kind of I started managing the League of Legends team and kind of developing that more
Mhm.
mindset of like having a very cohesive unit of individuals. Because I mean I played sports throughout like high school and middle school and whatever. And I did a lot of team sports, I guess, more in my youth. And then in high school, I did cross country all 4 years. And while a lot of people might look at that as a very individualistic sport, it's actually a team sport, since the team with the lowest kind of combined placement is the team that wins. So, and
Hmm.
throughout all of that, like I've never been one to kind of really dig into like the team atmosphere and vibe, but I think since kind of being a part of the collegiate space, that's definitely been something that I've gotten a lot more into and respected a lot more, and definitely want to bring to like any kind of organization or any team that I'm ever a part of. And so I think that that's really cool to hear. Um, Kind of going in I guess another direction, or something I want to kind of understand, is what are kind of the players' general kind of schedules, since they're balancing quite a lot here compared to someone
Hmm.
that's just playing in amateur
Hmm.
in like academy, or just playing in pro, where they're just kind of practicing for extended periods of time. If you're a collegiate esports athlete, you got to balance practice with your work schedule potentially, and also your education, and potentially like you
Hmm.
also want to have a social life. You just don't want to be kind of droned into being serious like 24/7 throughout all these kind of different aspects that you're trying to juggle. So what kind of is the typical kind of Maryville player schedule, so to say?
Sure. So, well, first off, I'd preface this by saying that the life of student athletes in general, like not just esports, but also like traditional sports, especially football, um, I think is kind of due for change. Um, I think that student athletes are asked for significantly more than traditional students. Um, Obviously, it comes with the benefit of being able to compete and all that sort of stuff, but you know, they're just simply asked to do more with the same amount of time. So it is it's like pretty tough. It's a daunting schedule for sure. And like at sometimes there's going to be sacrifices that have to be made, in social life or in whatever, really. So, um first off, like everyone here is a full-time student, so 12 plus credits. Um 12 plus credits, and then we kind of split our year up in half, or I guess in thirds really. So we do fall, spring, and then summer. In fall, we're not as active, or I guess yeah, it's probably like our least active part of our year. But we do um, 5 days a week basically. So we do Monday through Friday. Um, we compete in upsurge on Tuesdays, so we do upsurge and then 4 days of practice. Um, then the students have 12 credit hours, 12 to 15 usually. Um, they're on pace to graduate, so some semesters may lead to more. Um, and then people have their other things like streaming or Twitch rivals or individual coaching and all that sort of stuff. So I would say, like, let me pull up my calendar here and I'll run through like someone's schedule. Um, all right, let's take Dinka here for example. All right, so Dinka on Tuesday is gonna have English at 9:30, and then he's gonna have a class from 2 to 3:30, and then he's gonna have another class from uh or no, that's just the two classes for the day. So 9:30 and then 2. And then he will come to the lab. He'll come to the lab, and then he will do his homework, and then he will warm up his hands, play a game or two of solo queue. Then around 5 to 5:30, we'll run team meeting, and then 6 o'clock from 6 to 9, then scrims will happen. And then after scrims, he'll do homework and play solo queue and do all that sort of stuff. And then he'll meet for the next day. And then once a week, he has a one-on-one with me where we go over grades and, we can go over gameplay or talk about personal life, time management, all that sort of stuff. So, um, of course, there are days where students won't have class. For example, like Niles has a couple days a week where he doesn't have class. But on days where students have class, and practice, they're looking at about like a 12-hour day, like probably like a 12-hour day or so. But yeah, that's in the fall. And in the spring, it gets more busy because we start doing double blocks, and then we also start practicing more often. So, because of champs. And then obviously in summer, when there's no classes, we play a lot because we do stuff like scouting grounds. But the schedule is not as busy just because they don't have school as well. So,
Yeah. I know for at least the team at Ohio State, we were usually probably scrimming 3 times a week, so a lot less than 5 times a week. And I know I'm pretty sure like we didn't have this issue, so to say, outside of one special case of where a student didn't feel like they had enough time to be able to compete and keep up with their academics. But through talking within like the Big Ten scene, I know Iowa was a college that their general manager kind of suffered a lot with was players that just were really, really good at the game, but just didn't feel that they had enough time to balance all of the academics with kind of a practice schedule. Um, and so, yeah,
oh, well, I want
the
to say something about that because everyone feels like they don't have time for that stuff, and I'm not invalidating that feeling because I feel that feeling too. Don't get me wrong. Like there have been many times where um, I've sat down in a day and I'm like, I don't have simply do not have enough hours today, you know, like to do the stuff that I want to do.
yeah,
But that is based on what you perceive what you need to do. It's like, do you really need that 2 hours to chill? Like, do you really need to go out to dinner with somebody? Can't you just eat dinner while you're doing something? You know, like it's based on like people's perception. And if you really want to make it work and you truly, genuinely are incredibly passionate about making something work, you're gonna make it work. You know, like um, there are kids all over this country that are homeless and hit dean's list at school. Like they don't have a home. They sleep in a car or they walk 4 or 5 miles to school every day. You know, like there are people that will take 2 hours of buses to make sure that they get to school so they can do their shit. You know, like um now I'm not saying this is all the time, but I'm saying sometimes when someone says that it's like, oh, this is really hard or it's too hard for me or I don't have the time to do this or anything like that. They're saying like I don't think I'm capable of doing this. You know, like but if they truly want to do that, then they can put that stuff aside and get it done. Um, and not saying that's the case for everybody, but like sometimes people just aren't willing to get out of their comfort zone to make things happen. They're willing to do whatever it takes within their comfort zone to get stuff done. But sometimes that's people just not being aware of what they could do. Sometimes people aren't very good at working smart. Sometimes people are really hard workers, but they're not good at working smart. So, sometimes that limits their capabilities. If people are working smarter, then they can get further, like that sort of stuff. But um, yeah, like there are some instances, don't get me wrong, there are some instances where you just genuinely, it is incredibly difficult to balance the two, and you should just choose one or the other. But I think most of the time, if you really want it, you can make both things work.
yeah. And I think one good example of that, I guess, in kind of traditional sports was Aaron Kraft, who was a basketball player at Ohio State while pursuing a medical degree. Is a pretty good example of that.
Yeah,
But
for
I
sure.
think one thing that is incredibly helpful for those that might feel like overwhelmed with trying to balance all this is to have it scheduled out ahead of time, like what you're doing kind of during every hour of the day, kind of have that all planned out so that you know kind of how much time you have allocated. Then um, like even a couple like weeks in advance, like what that's going to look like definitely helps to kind of ease maybe kind of the mental strain of all the stuff that you need to balance kind of throughout the day.
Hmm.
Okay, so kind of moving forward in the conversation, what is kind of your view on how League of Legends is played at the collegiate level, and how is this different from that at the professional level domestically and internationally? Since we do have international competitions in Collegiate League of Legends, you guys attended that uh, in 2019. You made it all the way to the finals, where you eventually lost to the Chinese university. I cannot remember the name of it.
GMA.
Gine, yes.
GMA, yeah. And then
Gmail.
we came back, and so that was in Hong Kong in July. We lost to GMA, and we finished second place in the world. And then we came back in 2019 December, and we went to Sanya, China, and we played against GMA in semifinals, and we actually won. So we ended up coming back and beating, and then we lost to another Chinese team in finals.
Yeah, so
But
China's still dominating both
quite
in
good, yes.
professional and in collegiate. But kind of what
Quite
are
good.
some of the differences that you see there? So, for me, like my feeling is kind of that maybe this is only true for collegiate, or maybe it's not even true for collegiate. But I feel that as long as your composition isn't just absolutely terrible, kind of whoever executes it better is going to be the team that ends up winning.
Um, yeah. So I think the biggest thing that is, I think like the biggest thing I noticed at the collegiate level of play is something I noticed right away when I first got hired for the collegiate level is people like to play what's comfortable. Like people really tend to prefer comfort and they prioritize comfort more than anything at the collegiate level, which I don't think is necessarily wrong. Like it just depends on your team's progress and what your outlook is on things and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
But
speaking on comfort, sorry to cut you off
sure,
because
go ahead.
this is definitely something that I've faced with our we'll call it our academy team at Ohio State that we've had.
Hmm.
Academy team, B team, the one that's not the A team or the premier team that's competing in CLL. A lot of the players on that one prefer to play comfort, and if we ask them to like practice or to play something else, um, it's like pulling teeth in a
Yeah.
sense. And so, do you feel like kind of that decision to kind of continuously play comfort, um, it kind of inhibits them from maybe improving overall?
Oh,
Uh,
100%. Yep, 100%. So I think there's two different like forks in the road that you can take um with that sort of thought process. One is like when you're playing a champion, first of all, a champion is just a tool, right? A champion is a tool for you to do a job, right? So you can approach it one of two ways. You can either choose a tool that you're comfortable with in order to do something different that you are not comfortable with, or you can choose a different tool in order to learn how to use that tool effectively. So like there's nothing wrong with either of those two. Both of those are actually like good progressive like ways for you to improve as a team and as an individual. You know, maybe you've played Graves Jungle 1,000 times and your team has played it every time it's up, but maybe you guys are working on a specific map concept and you don't want to have to focus as much on champion execution. So you pick Graves. And then you're working on something different on the map that you're not used to doing. Like that is you taking comfort and reducing the amount of variables that you have to think about in your practice. And that's effective practice, right? There's no point in you taking a champion you've never played before and then trying to learn that champion while also working on a map concept you've never talked about before. Too many variables, like things are just going to get messed up. And then also the same way is like if you're trying to work on new champions, you should implement them into strategies that you've already done before so that at least they know where to go with the champion so they can focus on the champion itself, right? So
okay, yeah, that's interesting.
the problem with collegiate is that neither of those two things happen. They pick they pick the same tool and then they try to do the same thing with the same tool in order to make it better, but they're just doing the same thing. So while the quality of the way you use that tool in that situation is going to increase, like what you're getting out of that practice is never going to be better than what you're getting out of the other two things that I was saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like, I think comfort can be a crutch and it can inhibit your team's growth, but comfort can also be a really good thing that's like utilized to push the team forward, you know? Um, like we did that a lot with like Gangplank and stuff here. Like Niall's a really good Gangplank player. So, you know, we use Gangplank a lot, or we would use Gangplank a lot when we were working on stuff on the map together, you know? Like, it's just like no point in us playing a new champ while also trying to work on a new map concept at the same time. Uh, and then of course there are certain champs like Twist of Fate and that sort of stuff where you kind of have to do that, but um, that's not as much like a big deal. Um, but yeah, honestly, that's the biggest thing that about Collegiate that I've seen is that people stick to comfort a lot more than they should, or they don't use comfort effectively. I think that also happens at the academy and LCS level, just less so than collegiate, but collegiate is the one that like really sticks out. For example, like going into like a tournament like QFest or something like that, after watching like 4 or 5 games of another college team, you already know what champions they're going to pick. You know what order they're going to take the champions. You know what their first play is going to be, and you know exactly what they're going to do once they fall behind. Like you can just watch 4 games of a team, and like that can just happen, you know. So,
Okay. You might be able to
um,
watch 4 games. Me, I don't know if I'll be able to watch 4 games and be like, yeah, I completely understand this team now.
so it's like a perfect example of that is Arizona State decided to stream their scrims the week before HuFest.
That's
I watched
interesting.
I
I
watched
know
3 days of their scrims, and I knew everything that they were gonna do. Every single thing that they were gonna do, just off 3 days of scrims.
I know Call of Duty teams stream their scrims, but I've never heard of Collegiate League of Legends teams
I mean,
streaming their scrims.
they're doing it because like their coach is somebody that is in the public space and wants that information to be out there for, you know, his own teams. Like, you know, it does help the players get noticed, but and it helps him get noticed as well. So it's a
Yeah,
publicity thing, which is
it's a
understandable.
double-edged sword.
It is a double-edged sword. So, and the reason it is a double-edged sword is because that person, that person said while streaming the review, he said nobody is actually going to take the time to watch, or nobody's going to actually take the time to scout a collegiate team. But apparently that makes me nobody because I sat and I watched all the VODs. So, um,
You're
but
that
you know,
one
like,
guy. You're that one guy.
yeah, like they were really static in the way they did stuff, which is fine because that's the way you're supposed to do things when you're learning it.
Yeah, and
But after 3 4 days, I knew exactly what they were going to do, and then our B team played them, and it was like a cakewalk
yeah, and for
because we knew
people
exactly
that
what they're going to
don't know or don't pay attention to Cleveland Legends, Maryville, their A team and their B team both made it to the finals at HuFest this year.
do. Yep, correct. Which I believe that's kind of the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah. Well, I
Um,
mean, well, last year your B team got eliminated by us. Not,
yeah, yeah, for sure, and that's like we came into this year wanting to we wanted to like come into this year improving on that because like last year's like B team was just kind of like a group of people that didn't start, and you know that's kind of just my own fault. I didn't really have like good game plans for them and all that sort of stuff. So this year we really approached it with like different
I don't
with
want
like
you
a different ideology.
downplaying our win last year, okay? I don't want you downplaying that. That was it felt really good to win that. I don't want to
Yeah.
hear anything else.
So I mean like that also kind of goes back to what we were saying before about like, you know, you recruit for what you're trying to do and like,
Yeah.
you know, we have a lot of players that are getting professional looks, like scouts are in our practice and stuff, and um, so we recruited a lot of people for the goal of wanting to win a world championship. Well, because the season gets canceled and all that sort of stuff, like we didn't necessarily get an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
With some people graduating, some people might get picked up. We got to start thinking about like the next generation of Maryville, right? So you see two of the people that we picked up are like two 18-year-olds, now 19, but like solo laners, Dinka and Spyrax, like those people fit the mold of what we're looking for, right? Like those people, like I'm not picking up another 25-year-old player coming in as a freshman, right? Like I'm like we did that because those players have a lot of experience and they can help us in the now. But like we're not only do we want players to help us in the now, but we want players that are going to be like long-term investment too, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we did that. So our B team had a lot more of like a structured plan now, and yeah, we were able to like get it done.
Going off of that point, kind of with this, it's always kind of an interesting question on when is the right time to start rebuilding a roster or looking towards the
So
future.
it's a really good question, and Bill Walsh said it best. Bill Walsh is a quarterback coach, and then eventually became the head coach and the president actually at the same time, which is quite controversial. But he became the head coach and the president of the San Francisco 49ers back in the 80s and the football team. And he would always sell players or trade players a year or two before like what people perceive to be their prime. And his thought process was if you are picking up players in their prime or if you're selling players in their prime, it's just it's gonna all go downhill from there, or it's too late basically. So you want to try to get a jump on that sort of stuff so that you're constantly transitioning. Like the best time to rebuild is all the time. Like you always want to be preparing tomorrow today. So even if you're not going to use it right away, like you should always be ready to do that. So, that's we have a lot of people here with a lot of experience, but also at the same time, we just brought in the past year and a half, we brought in three young kids um, that don't have a lot of experience, and then we're like building them while we also have our experienced guys here. And once those experienced guys filter out, and then our new guys become the experienced guys, then that's where we're going to start implementing newer kids, younger kids, and get them, and just the whole cycle just repeats. But if you find yourself in a position where, um, like there was an example where Brett Favre retired, the quarterback for the Packers. He retired, and then he retired when they were on top, and I'm pretty sure they won the Super Bowl. And him and all of his teammates that were also getting towards retirement age, they all convinced him to run one more year with them and just do one more and try to double up the championship and then dip. They ended up going like 4-12 or something like that. They ended up doing like really poorly, missed playoffs, all that sort of stuff. So what they tried pushing it when it was already done, and then it ended up ending at a low point. So um, rebuilding is never something you should do in one fell swoop. It's something that you should just like always kind of be looking to do. And it's kind of like it's like cleaning your room or something, right? Or like doing the dishes and shit, right? It's like if you just take care of a little bit each day or each time, like it's never actually going to build up, and you're just going to like consistently operate.
Okay, that's a good analogy. I like that analogy. Going back to kind of the international competition, are there any kind of key differences you see between NA Collegiate and maybe European or Korea or Chinese collegiate teams?
Um, yeah, like the Eastern teams were really good about playing together as a team. Um, the Korean teams were really smart about building compositions around their strongest players. Like in the one of the Korean teams we played against a few times actually would run something we called a Ferrari comp, which was like Xin Zhao in the jungle and then just like Yumi, Lulu, Karma, Sivir, and just playing for their jungler because their jungler was their best player. So they were pretty one-dimensional in the way they approached the game, the Koreans, but they they put all their chips in that basket, and like when you compete against it, you kind of look at it and you're like, oh, that's kind of dumb. And then you compete it against it and you're like, oh wow, they're actually pretty good at doing it, right? So um like the Koreans were really good at that, and then the Chinese teams were just really good at using their resources for other people. Um, like one of my big takeaways from when we came back from playing China was like they used their TPs better than like anyone we've ever practiced against, even like academy team. Like they used TP advantage really well. They abuse our TP disadvantage really well. They were constantly moving off waves, so like even if both of our top laners didn't have TP and we were going for a play bottom, their mid laner was like always there first because he was always sacrificing CS, like always moving, um, that sort of stuff. So just the speed at which they played the game and they were willing to react to things and like contest things was strong. And then the Koreans just played around like their strong points really well while like reducing their weaknesses. They're not going to put their worst player on like a mechanically intensive matchup. I mean, they just had their laners on like Lulu, Karma, Sivir, Yumi, and like they made it really clear that they weren't going to play around those people. Uh, but yeah, those are probably like the differences that I noticed in those Eastern teams.
Okay, it's interesting. Uh, the Ferrari comp. My mind just immediately when you said like, okay, they just like put all the resources around their one player. My mind immediately just went to like, oh, Shiro Torizawa from Haikyuu. Okay.
Yeah, or if you think of like double lift in like early CLG days, like kind of like that, where it's like protect the double lift comp, like that's the type of shit that they were doing, but like around their mid laner or around their jungler, or like that sort of thing.
Okay. All right. So this is going to be kind of the last question that I do have for this interview, kind of at the top of the hour as we do pass the 1 hour mark. Is what changes would you like to see be made to the Collegiate League of Legends landscape?
Um, I would say probably like the biggest thing is not really like a business thing or anything like that. I think it's more just like an ideology. I think the biggest ideology that I would want to see changed is I want to see people be more dynamic in how they play the game. Um, it's just like I said, it was kind of going back on that scouting thing that we were talking about. Um, we understand why people do that, but like they need to be more effective and be able to branch out and do other things. Um, like we had a match recently where it's like we scouted together as a team for like 30 minutes, and then like the first game we draft, they literally pick all 5 champions we said in the same order that we were expecting them to pick. So they're just people are really, really, really like one dimensional at this level, and I think people need to be more dynamic on the way they approach the game. Certain players are seen only as carry players. Certain people are seen only as, oh, I only play utility mids or this or only that. Really, like people need to break those molds. That you just need to think of yourself as a complete player or an incomplete player. Like style is overrated, so you just need to focus on being a complete player, um, and don't focus on style until you get the other stuff down. Um, so that's like kind of like a mindset thing I would like to see changed. Um, what like physical change I would like to see implemented into like C-Law is I would like to see some more ex-professional, or I would like to see some more like professional players and coaches getting opportunities to coach collegiate. Uh, I think we tried really hard to do that. So Benji was helping us for a while. And for people who didn't know, Benji used to be a lot, and he played for teams like Envy and all that sort of stuff. And he played with me at Golden Guardians. Um, we were actually before Fallen Bandit went to 100 next. He was actually going to come here and coach with me. So just bringing in people like Fallen Bandit, like Benji, like these players that like X Special, right? Like X Special came in, he took over the Harrisburg program. I think taking people with that experience is um, good for the players and it's good for the program. Um, I think if we can get to points where programs can stop hiring student coaches, I think that would be really good. I think there's no problem with a coach choosing to take classes if he wants to, but I don't think that having a student peer as a leader is effective. You know,
Yeah,
um,
that's going to be a hard
it's
pill
going to be a
for
tough one.
some
It's going to be a
universities to
it's
swallow.
going to
Yeah.
be it's going to be a tough one, but for sure it's going to be a tough one. But just it's not even based on like the respect or the authority or anything. It's just simply the amount of time that you have to put in. Like running a collegiate team is like running any sort of competitive team is a full-time job. It's not something you can just show up to scrims and you can do.
Yeah,
Like
$100.
you can do that, but you're not going to be very good. Like there have been days for me as a coach where I just show up to scrims and I just try to do scrims and then I go home. I'm not gonna lie about that shit. Like I've done that before. Like where I kind of just half-assed it for the day and just showed up for scrims. And like nobody's gonna succeed when you have leadership like that, right? So, but it's like, what happens when you're putting people in positions where that's like physically the only time they have is to come do that, right? So you need to be able to like get people that can make this a full-time job because you're like, let me pull up a message. I was talking to other people about this recently. Uh, where is okay, here it is. So like some things that you need to be thinking about when you're coaching at like this level is you need to be thinking about like team meetings, coaches meeting. First off, like you have to do bookkeeping stuff. Like we're a part of athletics, so I have to do all of the athletics meetings too. So you have just multiple types of meetings. You have to do VOD review. You have to do prep time. You have to do one-on-one work, and that's not one-on-one work just in the game, but also schoolwork, like grade checks, all that sort of stuff. Team practice, team building, recruitment, community building, volunteer work, content. Like there's a list of like 15 things that you can do every single day for the program, right? And it's like you can't expect someone to be like an 18 credit like bio like chemistry grad student and also do all 10, 12 of these things every single day for a team. It's just not realistic, right? So um you got to put like you got to put you got to put 2 feet in. Like it's not a profession where you can just put 1 foot out and 1 foot in. You have to put both feet in. You have to jump in, and you have to commit 100%. So I just think where it's like if you're hiring like busy students to do this sort of thing, you're not going to get out what you want to put in. You know. So I think that's something I would really like to see is start utilizing some of these players that no longer are playing and actually use them to like lead teams, lead young men, um, but yeah, that's probably like the biggest change. I guess the last change I would like to see be made is I would like there to try and be some sort of like hmm what's the best way to put this? I would like there I would like there to be some sort of like thing where leadership in each program can get together and they can work on things collectively without giving away too much stuff about their program. Just being able to bounce ideas off each other, help people with structure, help people with that sort of thing. Um, Divided house is never going to stand, right? So we need to be able to help each other out while also staying competitive. And people really get those two mixed up. They think, oh, if you're helping someone, you don't want to beat them, but it's like that's not true. You know, uh,
Yeah, no,
you
I'm
can
always
help
of the
someone.
mindset of, sorry to
Yeah.
cut you off, but I'm always of the
No, no.
mindset it's like, oh, you're helping them. If they get better, then you're helping yourself also get better. If you're making your competition better, you're also making yourself better.
Yeah, I mean, like after we beat Arizona State in the UCLA tournament, I sat down with their coach and we VOD reviewed their games. So that doesn't mean I don't want to beat them any less. I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder with them, so I want to beat them all the time, right? So like, but it doesn't mean I don't want to help them, right? But too many people get that like mixed up. Uh, Too many people get that mixed up, and they think, oh, because if you want to help someone, you don't care if you like win or not, or you're saying, oh, if you want to win, it means you can't help people. It's just neither of those two are true. But I guess like I know I said that was the last thing, but one of the things that kind of drives me nuts is like you need to have like I saw this tweet where someone was saying like collegiate is never going to succeed um until we start hiring people with like good intent. And while I agree, I like 100%. Yeah, I said collegiate esports space will never improve until we listen and empower the coaches and leaders with good intentions. While I agree to an extent, um, like you need to like there are a lot of people out there that are just doing it for themselves, and those people kind of need to be weeded out. Like you need to do it for the happiness and success of your players. Only that. No credit. Like you should, as a coach, you should ask for no credit. You should willingly take all the blame, and then you should always be the first person that gets the shit thrown at them, right? It's kind of your job. It's what you signed up for. But like all that's well and good, but if you don't have like the ability to match the intentions, then like that's where things are gonna get weird. Because you can have the nicest person in the entire world, but if they don't know how to like do stuff, then they just don't know how to do stuff, right? Um, so like we need to be able to match. We need to be able to find people with ability that also have good intentions, and I think that's where a lot of like these like old coaches and like old pro players and stuff would really come in handy. Because I don't think there's any shortage of people with good intentions, but I think there's a shortage of like ability. And like I'm not even trying to say that as like somebody who thinks like highly of themselves. It's like I think I'm like decent ability wise, but I also know that I have like plenty of things that I don't know, and my players correct me on shit all the time. So not even saying like my ability is 100% there, but we just need to find people with like a higher baseline of knowledge, right? Um, in order to push the scene forward. Like the scenes, like anything starts with leadership, right? You
Yeah.
have to, if collegiate wants to get better, the leadership has to get better. And just from experiencing the people in collegiate that I've experienced, I think some of them have terrible intentions because they're selfish and they want to do it themselves, or do it for themselves. But I feel like a lot of the people have good intentions, they just don't know what to do. So like if those people don't know what to do, they either need to be taught, which is like we need to get together and teach each other, or we need to get them out of there. Which, if you have things like NACE and all that sort of stuff, if you just have a bunch of people that don't understand, then everybody understands. And then nothing gets done, right? Which is kind of what Collegiate is going on right now. Uh, teams like Harrisburg and teams like Maryville and teams like, yeah, just teams like those two, the they're at the top because they have good players, but also because they have like leadership that is able to push forward. And that's not to like toot my own horn or anything, because I have players that make my job very easy. But, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, getting the players here is also a part of the job, so we just need to be able to like teach these people and raise the floor of like what our leadership is. Because there's too many coach Joes and coach Jims and all that like have the coach name on Twitter, but then I ask them what their 6 month plan is, or what their 1 year plan is, or what their coaching philosophy is, and they can't even like put together a sentence. You know. Uh, but yeah, sorry to go off on a little bit of a tangent there, but
No, I mean, I'm
there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. I'm just trying to think of like the most important.
yeah, I mean, if you got any more you want to bring up, go for it. Go for it.
No, I think it's really, I think at the end of the day, if I were to break it down into like just the two big ones, is intention is not the same as ability. So you need to be able to have the intentions and the ability. And then also is don't be one dimensional, push yourself, do things that you're not comfortable doing. That's the whole point. If you're a control mage player only, force yourself to learn other things and play other things as a team. If you are a this style type player, which you hear all the time and it's really fucking annoying, like if you hear that, then force yourself to do something that you're bad at, like just make yourself better in a sense. Like I know that's kind of five head to say, just be better, but like growth occurs outside of your comfort zone. And
Yeah.
collegiate is a scene that is plagued by comfort. So
You
we
can't
got to
see
either
me, but
use
I'm
that.
I'm I'm nodding my head right now.
Yeah, we either use that comfort effectively and proactively, or we just sit here and be the same. Like the top teams in collegiate have gotten better over the past 3 years, but the middle to bottom tier teams have stayed the same. Nothing like, and not in terms of placement, but in terms of skill. Like the overall scene in collegiate has not improved. Just the top people have. So, like we need to get the whole scene to improve, right? So we need to start getting people out of their comfort zones. We need to start getting some quality leadership, some good intentions with ability and all that sort of stuff.
Okay. All right. I got one more question.
Sure.
And so this will be a C-Law one. What changes would you like to see be made to C-Law? Since I know, kind of going off of like that last question, you have kind of those top universities, and it's divided up into north, south, east, and west with some smaller conferences that are a bit of a joke. Not going to name any of them by name, but since the Big Ten Conference, which obviously Ohio State we were a part of, since that was abolished, that was kind of like the highest competitive of those like outside conferences where all the teams were very equal in skill level. And then you obviously have the north, south, east, and west, which are schools that aren't part of any conferences, but that's done. I can't remember the style of it. Swiss bracket style is what I
Hmm.
yeah, it's Swiss bracket style. So for anyone that is not familiar with that, what that means is you're only playing teams of an equal record. So until like probably your last couple games of the regular season, you're probably playing a bunch of really not bad teams that aren't up to like your team's caliber. If
Yeah.
you're a Maryville or if you're a Harrisburg or if you're an ASU or uh, Columbia College or kind of any of those that have established programs, you're not really
Yeah.
playing teams that are up to your skill level until like the very end, or maybe not even at the very end, maybe not until the championship.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing that I would change is, um, first of all, I think those matches are a waste. Like, I think the first like 4 weeks of collegiate is just kind of, uh, it's a requirement. We do it because it's a requirement. Um, but I think that it really is just about like separating teams. Like you have to have, first off, like I don't think it should be any easier, quote unquote, for a team like Maryville to qualify for champs than any other program. Like I don't think we should have an advantage because we've done it in the past. You see programs all the time that are good one year and they're terrible the next. It's not like, I'm not trying to say that, but I'm saying it's like one of the things that needs to happen with collegiate is that the viewership needs to get better because people need to start seeing it as a more serious like road for them to take. But if people don't want to join Maryville because they see us like beating up on a bunch of teams in the first 4 weeks of CLAW. People want to join Maryville because we're like the team that's going to win Hugh, we're the team that's going to win national championship, like we're the team that can push for a world championship, all that sort of stuff. Um, so if you can put us in more situations like that where they're more higher pressure, then like that would be good. maybe it doesn't affect our C-Law standing, but more games where Maryville is playing Harrisburg or CC is playing GVU or anything like that. Illinois Wesleyan's playing Arizona State. Like more of those games for viewership would really help the scene out, in my opinion. And then also like us playing a team that can't match up to us isn't going to help the other team at all either. Because if they're just getting blown out in laning phase, like they're not going to learn anything from the game either. So we need to try and find a way to keep qualification equal, like everyone has an equal opportunity to qualify for champs, but we need to find a way to make the competition more difficult. Not more difficult. We need to find a way to make the competition um more worthwhile, I guess, for people, or we got to keep people in like more similar competitive like zones, I guess, like
Yeah.
instead of us like uh like last year for C-Law, our week 6 match was going to be Michigan State. Usually what happens in our week 6 is that we have to play Columbia College because we're both the 5-0 teams. But we ended up playing Michigan State. So we didn't even get to play Columbia College in the regular season. But like why is that the case? Why don't we get to play them once? Why don't we play a season that is weighted more heavily, but we have to play more tough opponents?
Yeah, so maybe kind of
Like maybe like a
break it.
weighted schedule sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm
You
not
know?
sure of like a weighted schedule, or maybe they break it up. I know a lot of people hate the NCAA and kind of how college football is done, but for collegiate law, it might not be a terrible way of doing it, of where you kind of have what is it even called? Where uh, I don't know what it's called. Where like what their ranking system is, and they come out like each week. I can't remember what the name of it is. Uh, but it's gonna maybe it'll come back to me at some point. But you have your conference games where you kind of develop a conference. Obviously, I don't know who's in Maryville's normal like athletic conference, but it probably wouldn't you wouldn't want to do it that way, because I don't think any of those teams in that are probably up to par in your esports.
Mm-hmm.
So probably you develop some type of conference where you have Maryville, Columbia College, Harrisburg, maybe some other schools or whatever in that conference. And then I really want the Big Ten conference to come back, because all those teams were very competitive against each other. It was never a boring match of the week. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have like your Peach Belt and whatever other conferences are developed. And you can like you could technically divide it up into like D3, D2, D1 if you wanted to, based on like
Exactly.
the
Stuff like that.
team's the
Yep.
team's solo queue ranking, where your D1s are everyone on the team's like diamond or above, um, probably, and then you weight the difficulty of the conference, and you then like some probably electoral body votes people based on like what position they ended in their conference into a a national championship of like 8 teams or whatever. So maybe depending on like the weight of competition in the Maryville one, maybe only 2 teams out of the Maryville conference go to the national championship. Maybe one from like Big Ten. There's a bunch of really good West Coast teams, so maybe there's like a West Coast conference. Maybe they get like 1 or 2 or something, like your UCI or and like one of the Canadian schools or ASU or something like that. It adds a huge amount of complexity to it, but I think the overall experience for the players, the universities, and then also the viewerships would be a lot better. It's just like, do they
Yeah,
want
like
to have to
nobody's
put all
actually
those
gonna tune
resources
in.
in?
Nobody's gonna tune in to watch us kill Oakland University 50 times in a 20-minute game, right? Like it's not worth it, right? So like it's not even like fun for me to watch, like it's not even fun for me to watch. It's more like we go into those sorts of games and I have to tell my players to like restrain themselves. Like it's not even like competition at that point. It's just like don't blow them out too hard, without sounding too mean about it. But um I don't know, like all that stuff. I'm sure there's a system that they could do where like weighted schedule, D1, D2, D3, all this sort of stuff. Maybe that would help scholarships scale. D1 scholarships, or maybe Rye gives D1 eligible teams more scholarship money. Blah blah blah. I don't really know. Um, the one thing I do know though is like this is something I did not bring up, but I'll bring up real quick is um like I said this before, like a divided house can't stand, right? And there are lots of programs out there, and I'm saying lots a bit hyperbolically, so take it with a grain of salt, but there's a lot of programs out there that look up to the people that are better than them, like us, and they dislike us because they think that what we're doing is like wrong, or they think that like, oh, they're just doing that because they have more resources, or oh, you know, like I don't like this coach because of so and so, or like I don't like this program because they got these players or whatever. But like if they're successful and they're doing things consistently successfully, why are you not trying to learn from them? Like I had somebody associated with the university reach out to me, and they said that it's like, I need you to help my program. We're essentially drowning. Like the program is drowning, because the head coach just refuses to take advice from anyone. And then I was like, okay, what if I come in and try to talk to them and help them understand? And I had never talked to this person in my entire life. And they're like, oh, no, that coach hates you, thinks you're an asshole, like, thinks you're terrible at your job, all that sort of stuff. And it's like, I've never talked to the person once in my entire life. Like, but if that school with a bunch of like low diamond players is going to have that opinion of those who are doing better than them, how are they ever going to get better? You know, like it's not like we sit here at Maryville and we just like smile at the fact that we're like the best program and then we just sit here on our hands and not do anything. It's like I'm consistently looking at the people that are above me, talking with coaches that compete in LCS, compete in Worlds. I talk to people not even in esports to try and like understand that stuff better. If you're not trying to push yourself to the next level through, your own hard work, but also the help of other people, then you're just doing it wrong. And people are just so drilled into this ego of like having to do it, like having to, you know, do shit their way, or whatever, that they just hurt themselves. They just hurt themselves and hurt their program by refusing to like take help. And this person like legitimately is refusing to take help from me because they're too proud of what they think they're doing, or they have this preconceived notion of who I am without even talking. And I'm telling you, there's like dozens of teams that are like that. Dozen. And like what the hell is the point of this stuff if we're not trying to make the players better, and we're not trying to like make the whole scene better, you know? So I think people just need to like put their pride aside and just try to like help each other out.
Well said. So, well, that is kind of it for me question wise. It was a pleasure talking to you once again. I hope everyone listening was able to get something out of the conversation that we did have here. And thank you everyone for listening. Do you have anything else you kind of want to say before we close it out?
No, not really. I mean, just feel free to follow me on Twitter as ZEU. Um, yeah, same with just feel free to hit me up if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, any advice or anything like that. If you feel like you have something that you need to teach me, like feel free to reach out. Also, just give Maryville a follow, Maryville GG at all socials. Um, just keep an eye out for us, man. We're gonna be doing some big things, and Maryville's gonna kind of reinvent this whole collegiate game. So just keep an eye out for what we're doing.
Yeah, good luck to you guys this upcoming collegiate season. season, excuse me. But that is it from us here, Just Another Esports Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will see you all next time.